Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Chupa. Chupa is an American family film that tells the story of Alex, a Mexican-American middle school student who has a hard time fitting in. Shortly after the death of his father, his mother sends him to Mexico to spend a week with his extended family, during which he encounters a young chupacabra. It doesn't take long after finding the beast nicknamed Chupa before other forces at play show up to take Chupa from its native environment to research it. Due to this, Alex and his family must work together to protect Chupa and reunite it with its family before they're caught. Perhaps my expectations for this movie were set a bit too high due to it being directed by the son of Alfonso Cuarón, but I found myself underwhelmed with this one. It's okay for a one-time watch with family members, and its central concept is interesting, but it's otherwise a generic kid-oriented adventure without much appeal to it. The main character, Alex, is about as bland as they come for a family-oriented story, which is unfortunate because the movie does try to give him depth. He finds himself on the fence between what he's used to as an American and trying to become more attached to his Mexican heritage, and I like the idea of him reconciling both of these aspects at once. However, the movie never really goes anywhere with this concept. Anytime Alex has a disagreement with someone over something like being obsessed with American electronics or learning to appreciate Mexican food better, it's usually only addressed in that one moment and rarely, if ever, revisited again thereafter. It also doesn't help that Alex came off as a bland outcast without any sort of context given as to why he is an outcast in the first place. He never makes any real steps toward improving himself or trying to accept who he is, and when he does, it feels rushed and inauthentic, because his relationship with Chupa ultimately takes priority. Speaking of Chupa, he was definitely the main reason to watch this movie. Again, like Alex, he's sort of generic with how he's portrayed as a helpless animal that's being hunted, but his visual design and personality make him a lot of fun to watch. Rather than behave like one kind of animal, he behaves like several. There were times when he seemed like a cat, then like a bird, and then like a bat or a dog. The movie makes good use of the mythological traits associated with the chupacabra and employs them in a variety of ways that make Chupa more interesting. The special effects used to portray Chupa were also well done. Even though it is heavily dependent on CGI, it's nice to see an animal on screen that actually looks like it's there. Chupa has a lot of detail put into its appearance, right down to the last follicles of its hair and feathers of its wings. Apart from the way it moves, one can also see the personality behind Chupa, which isn't easy to do when doing live-action animations of animals, especially legendary ones. Whether it acts feisty toward its would-be captors or lovingly toward Alex, Chupa feels like a character in his own right who just wants to be reunited with his mother, so it's hard not to sympathize with the little guy. It's funny how an animal who doesn't talk ended up being the best character in the movie, because everyone else is so generic by comparison. Alex's cousins Luna and Mimo, while not being terrible characters per se, don't have that much to offer other than being sidekicks for Alex. His grandfather Chava has a bit more characterization, but it's kind of weird. On one hand, he is entertaining as an ex-lucha libre wrestler who hams it up here and there, but he has this memory issue that's never explored or addressed properly. It almost feels like it was thrown in just to move certain parts of the story along, which feels cheap. Even the main villain, Quinn, who's played by Christian Slater, doesn't have anything noteworthy about him other than wanting to catch Chupa for the sake of corporate desires, and how he always seems to appear out of thin air to make life difficult for everyone involved. Again, the movie feels cheap and lazily written with how everything proceeds. It's a typical coming-of-age story where the main character goes through a journey and discovers himself through it, with the help of a non-judgmental friend in the form of an animal. It's not a terrible idea on paper, but it's far from being original. And going back to what I said earlier, this journey results in sudden epiphanies that have no rhyme or reason to them. For example, Alex puts off learning Spanish because he's used to speaking in English. This makes sense and could have been a good plot element if it had been followed up on better, but it never builds beyond one or two scenes before Alex suddenly starts speaking Spanish toward the end out of nowhere. I never got a sense that Alex was trying to balance the two cultures he's involved with. Part of the problem is that his actor doesn't do the best job emoting how his character feels, but it more so has to do with the way he's written. He's so preoccupied with helping Chupa that all of the cultural identity stuff falls to the wayside, so he never gets any sort of proper arc. And it's a shame because I can definitely see where the movie wanted to go with this direction. One can tell just from watching it that the movie is proud of its presentation of Mexican culture and how it integrates into the story. Everything from the music to the set designs to the lore surrounding Chupa all feels authentically Mexican, and this lends a positive energy to the story. The 1990s setting also provides more focus on the family dynamic of the characters without any modernisms in language getting in the way of it, and provides a neat sense of nostalgia through things like Game Boys and Jurassic Park references that, as a fellow 90s kid myself, helped me connect better to the characters. As far as entertainment value goes, it's decent for the most part. It's made mostly for kids in mind, so it's not going to say or do anything suggestive apart from a few scenes of violence that are a tiny bit graphic, but the story remains innocent, and the comedy does get a chuckle here and there, especially when Chava gets amped up in his pro wrestler persona. The movie doesn't have much else worth mentioning. It feels like there's a personal perspective in there somewhere, with it being partly written by the director Jonas Cuarón, but it gets lost amidst the dual nature of its story, and the generic plot and characters don't help with the entanglement of it all. Overall, Chupa is an average family adventure flick that could have been a lot more than it ended up being. If you like coming-of-age stories and are looking for a generic one that's harmless for kids and involves an animal sidekick, you might enjoy checking this out. I really wanted to give this movie a chance, and I did enjoy the oddly adorable nature of its central concept, but it's the only thing that keeps an otherwise bland, mediocre story from sinking. It's still okay overall, but in the end, I found the legend surrounding the Chupacabra a lot more memorable in comparison. What did you think about this movie? Did you enjoy the way it explored the mythology of the Chupacabra, or were you also bored by the story and characters? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's gonna wrap up my review of Chupa. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Thai drama, Hunger. Bye bye!